Okay, Stefan. So I've known Stefan for many years now as an undergraduate student and now a candidate for a master's in fine arts. And it's been wonderful to see students turn into teachers and legit authors. That makes me old, apparently, but it's great. All of the various incarnations of Stefan have been delightful to witness. He has grown in literary analytical skill, articulation of craft and artistic intention, grown in charm, and has grown a beard. Amazing. I'm impressed. I want this introduction to be about community, nostalgia for the miraculous periods of life, like finding a friend and falling in love for the first time, because that is where the heart of Stefan's work lives. I also have to think about parts of this world that frustrate, astonish, and disappoint. Stefan's manuscript is a trans coming of age young adult novel, written with grace, authority, insight, and awareness of the torturous magic that is loving your enemy. In the past decade or so, we have all seen the trans experience go from being considered a rare occurrence to a sacred manifestation to the prime scapegoat for everybody's sexual insecurities and a tool of manipulation for nefarious actors in their eternal pursuit of control. This seems historically to be a standard cycle. What all the rhetoric around the right to exist misses is the undeniable truth of love. I am a champion of Stefan's commitment to wholesome, cute lives for his gang of queer youth, especially in a world where for some of them, just being alive is considered offensive. I'm very familiar with the reality that oppressive forces just won't leave you alone to do good or bad all by yourself. Our language has to be a shield. Our language gets to be a home. Stefan has been the most prolific writer I've known to go through the program, writing hundreds of thousands of words, and at this point has completed multiple drafts of a full novel for his thesis, an absolute juggernaut of productivity. Now, his work is a joyful celebration of the trans experience, boys in love, and the communities by blood or choice that sustain them. I'm honored to share this experience with you all. Let us welcome Stefan Leiva.
Thank you, Venita, for the kind words. Ever since, no, I love it. You're very right. I did not have this beard when I started this program, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, so instead of just strictly a reading, I wanted to do a sort of a presentation of my thesis. For everybody in this room, there's kind of varied levels of familiarity with it. Some of you may have never heard anything from my thesis. Some of you have been in workshops with me and read parts of my thesis. Some of you are some of my first editors for the very first version of my thesis. And for a very select few, you've read the entire thing. So, otherwise, I do want to present my thesis, Lucifer's Exception. The MFA showcase is proudly presenting. So before I get started, I do want to give some acknowledgements. As kind of Venita had mentioned, community is a really big part of my life and it means a lot to me. And I do have so many people in my life that make it so enriching and fulfilling. And that definitely shows in my work. So I did want to recognize a few. So for my writing colleagues, I'd like to thank my 2026 cohort, Hua, H, and Shannon. I still remember the years ago being in that stuffy, sweaty room in August where we had just first met, and now here we are. I'd also like to thank the fiction cohorts of 2024, 2025, 2027, and 2028, as all of you have participated in a workshop reading my work. So everybody there has a hand in what will eventually become the final product. I'd like to thank my mentors, my thesis committee, Venita, Brenna, and Renee. I've really appreciated you guys working with me these past few years with this story, and I've learned so much from you all as both mentors and colleagues when it comes to education, but also writing. And I really appreciate all of you for tolerating my high word counts. I'd also like to thank the writing center directors, Ginny, Courtney, and Tamaro. Even though this is about my work of fiction, I've simultaneously become an educator during my time in the program. And I do want to recognize the directors of the Writing Center who have helped me become the educator that I am today, in addition to the writer I am today. I'd like to thank my friends and family, my found family, Gracie, Jeevan, Kayla, McKenna, Teresa, Sam, Mac. I've known you all for plenty of years at this point, and because of you, I can write very authentic and heartfelt friendships in my writing. I'd also like to thank my lifelong family, my mom, my sisters Heidi and Jasmine, and Issa. Through you, I do understand, what love is in a family, and I'm able to project that in my own writing because of that. I'd also like to thank my girlfriend Antonia, who is the president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer of my fan club, but I'm yours as well. So I'd like to start. What is Lucifer's exception, actually? So a short synopsis, Lucifer Vega has one goal in mind, get out of Mayfield, California. He has a few things to endure until then. His past romance with his best friend, John Nunez Yang, seems like the last thing on his mind now that his new crush, Megara Park, occupies his every thought. He can't even turn to his cousin, Dolores Escobar, after their summer falling out that has left him confused and lonely without a reason for it. There is no solace in Luz's own home, with his abuela vocally rejecting his transgender identity and his parents who sit idly by. Luz is ready to leave it all behind for a better life, and no lingering attachments are going to stop him. Dexter Sanchez just might be that exception. So a lot of my pieces are character driven, and my thesis is no exception. Again, coming back to this great value that I have on community, my work reflects the same as these stories occupy communities in themselves that have strong connections and go the distance. As currently my thesis is a little longer than to be published, but all that time spent is all that time spent together is fulfilling, substantial. So, who is Lucifer Vega? So Lucifer Vega is student body treasurer of Mayfield Central High, Luce for short. A cynical bookworm with a passion for Greek mythology and witty comebacks. He is the protagonist of this story. Luce has been a character for a long time in my writings, and it's really, as I've been able to assess my own growth and development as a person and a writer, it's been really fulfilling to see Luce's own development from the ideas where he first were created from to now the protagonist of his very own novel and a few more in the future. So we have our supporting cast mentioned in the synopsis. We have Dexter Sanchez, who is the student body president, John Nunez Yang, who is Luce's best friend, Megara Park, who is the student body vice president, and Medisol, aka Dolores Escobar, student body secretary. So student council is kind of like the main setting for this novel. That's where we start. That's where the characters kind of have their identifiers. But as the novel grows, they become more than just those baseline identifiers of who they are in the high school. Who they are starting out in Luce's life. We do really get to know them, more as characters, more as people, and in the way that I embrace YA and its nature to evoke a lot of emotion and nostalgia for this time. My goal with this thesis was to also create, characters that do feel as fleshed out and alive as the people you may have run into in your high school years. So I come from an art background. I am a digital artist, and I've done a lot of art for the characters. This is just a sample of all of the artwork that I've done, featuring different characters from the story, and something that I came from my art undergraduate, so I wasn't technically majoring in English, but I was constantly told, like, there is absolutely a way you can use both your art and your writing. So, I always make sure to bring my art and illustration with me whenever I'm telling stories. And, over these past few years, investing in this story, I've had a lot of fun also illustrating the characters, and in a way, brings them to life in a way that is more than just, words on a paper. So Why Lucifer's exception? I am primarily a YA writer. I love young adult fiction. I love reading it. They're my favorite stories to tell. I've explored different genres as well, but this is young adult is my mainstay. And unfortunately, it can get kind of a bad rap. Some people may see YA as kind of the lower level genre. It's to be taken less seriously. These are just little stories about teenagers. But I've always rejected that sentiment. I do believe YA is some of the most important stories we could have out there. So, talking a little bit more about young adult fiction, I think it's fun to write. It's really fun to write. I love recreating the glory and horrors of adolescence, in my own design. We all have those experiences from middle school and high school that do have those long-lasting effects on us, and we can either, cringe and laugh about it, or maybe these are long-lasting wounds that I might need to go to therapy for. But I love it. It's all part of a story, and through writing young adult fiction, I'm able to create these compelling stories where I can decide what are the high highs and the low lows, the lessons learned and the places that we explore. I do consider YA to be really influential. It's not just YA is primarily for a young adult audience, but I know people of all ages really like YA. Some of the most popular pieces of media are YA, and people get so invested in it. And I think that's because I think through that shared experience of adolescence, we're able to connect to the things that we're reading in the genre. And I want the same to happen with my stories. One of my biggest goals with my writing is to evoke emotion from the reader. And with any kind of any audience of any audience member who would be reading my work, whether it is someone of the target audience or somebody a little older, maybe someone still kind of approaching adolescence, I would still want them to, have this impression, this long lasting impression from, the experiences that they're taking in, seeing what these characters are going through and how they react, and, who they are as people, and, get a feeling, generate feelings of familiarity or nostalgia, laughter and sadness. My, main point, I do think YA is necessary, especially now more than ever. I write primarily I write primarily queer young adult fiction. It's queer stories are kind of my mainstay. You will very rarely find a story I've written that is not queer in some way. And I'm proud of that. But when we think about queer youth now, it's an awful world where, queer youth are just constantly under fire with, the stuff that any kind of laws that are made, hate crimes committed. And, I'm not really a YA writer that documents a lot of that grief and angst of the queer experience. I love to write stories of joy. And one of my personal rules is, I always want a happy ending for these characters, because I think it's really important for queer youth to read stories where they can see themselves, but also realize they can have a happy ending as well. Thank you. So, my personal reason for writing Lucifer's Exception, and a lot of the stories that I write, if you are ever familiar with my work, you can see the patterns of the type of characters that I write, who are my protagonists. And, I wrote this story because all I wanted growing up was stories of romance, friendship, laughter, and love, where the main character was like me. Well, the protagonist of Lucifer's Exception is transgender, he's Salvadoran, he's neurodivergent, and I click all those boxes. So I write stories, I write stories with characters who are like me, because I know there are still readers out there who are like me, finding those stories. So there might be multiple Salvadoran transgender neurodivergent readers out there They're gonna read this, and it's gonna be great. So the dedication for my novel is going to be, for the trans boy reading this, you too will be loved. You too will love and be loved. So for the actual reading, while you're all here tonight, something I try to emphasize to my fiction writing students when we're talking about writing narratives and substantial stories, kind of a rule of thumb that I always feel like is helpful is you want your characters to be in a different place than where they started. You know, some form of change has had to have happened over the course of the story to feel like, you know, to feel satisfied with some sort of progress being made, but also seeing the growth of characters, especially if they do start off, you know, in a hard spot, a place in a flawed place, a place of struggle. So I'll be reading 2 excerpts from Lucifer's section. The first is from chapter 1, Luce's first day of student council. With every new girl that walks into the classroom, Luce begins to fear that he may be the only boy on the council. Fortunately, or if you ask Luce, unfortunately, that is not the case. I distract myself with Song of Achilles, and it works until the sound of obnoxious singing rings through the hallway. I think it's just a student passing by the classroom until it enters the room. It turns out I'm not the only boy, but now I wish I was. If I could write you a song and make you fall in love, I would already have you up under my arm. A guy slides into the room, belting one of the worst songs that had played radio last year. He's wearing sunglasses indoors. Mind you, it's been cloudy all day. He dances over to the girls, greeting everyone in the tune of the song. He enraptures that side of the table, Megara included. Then he sings the synthesizer part. Yep, he's the most annoying type of person. Thankfully, I'm wallpaper to them. Deep into the chapter I'm reading, I realize the singing has blissfully stopped and I'm at peace until I look up and see the boy's face peering over my book cover. The shock causes me to jump in my seat, making him laugh. Hate. You should pay more attention to what's around you if you're going to read that hard, the boy says, scratching his long nose. There could be a fire, and you'd be the last one to notice. He runs a hand through his perfect wavy brown hair and somehow doesn't mess it up. Ugh. Good, it'll save on cremation costs, I reply, looking down at my book. Huh, that's dark. You must be the edgy type, or a small lumberjack with the black and red plaid. He responds, pulling up a chair to sit backwards in. These type of guys are the worst because all they care about is attention and pushing your buttons for more attention. I'm not interested in giving him any, so I respond with an eye roll and return to Achilles. It doesn't work because he's still hovering in front of me. What are you reading? He's 3 inches away from the cover, yet he's asking me this. He's trying to mess with me. Song of Achilles, I answer flatly. Yeah, I know that. I see the cover, he says. Then why did you ask? I scream internally. It sounds like something out of Harry Potter. Oh, please don't. I bet you're a Potterhead, right? You totally got the look going on. You just need different frames. This fly in my ear somehow knows all the wrong things to say. The fact this guy can't tell Greek mythology from fantasy wizards is appalling. Or he knows exactly what he's doing and is waiting for me to get riled up. I'm not playing that game. I have more in common with the guys that smoke under the bleachers than any Potterhead, I reply, attempting to look occupied with my books to see if that'll make him go away. It doesn't. Ah, I get it. Pothead, Potterhead, that's funny, he says before standing up. I'm going to steal that. That snaps me up from my book and I glare at him in disbelief. I think Angela reads Harry Potter. Hey, Angela! The pest walks his way over to the other side of the table. I hear a malformed version of my joke spill from his mouth and it gets a big laugh. He has the gall to look at me afterwards with a smirk. My nails claw the plastic cover of the book, wishing it was smug eyes. So the second excerpt is from the final chapter of Lucifer's Exception. After 5 months filled with banter, heartbeats, heartaches, self-realization, grief, conflict, resolution, and love, Luce finds himself where he never fathomed, in Mayfield, loving and being loved with dexterous inches. On Monday, our student council meeting is miraculously canceled, so Dexter and I plan to rendezvous at his place until my parents expect me home. On the way to his house, I proposed brainstorming ideas for more ways to see each other. Fake student council meetings on Tuesdays and Thursdays are a good idea. Dexter also doesn't mind spending time at the library too, which genuinely sounds fun if you remember that he's supposed to be quiet. Though I'd miss being able to cuddle and make out without the world judging us. At his house, Dexter has something very cool to show me, something he was hyping up in the car ride over. My interest is piqued, and he leads me to his room, an off-limits area when I'm over, but his dad won't be home until late, so we're safe. While it's been months since I've seen his room, nothing could prepare me for what I see. Instead of the minimalist look I saw last year, Dexter's room is decked out with millions of figurines, plushies, and anime posters covering every inch of the walls. Ah, that's more like it. I nod as I toss my backpack aside. Way better than last time, he says, putting away his bag. He walks over to me and wraps his arms around me for a hug, one that I am more than happy to reciprocate. This isn't what I wanted to show you, though. I bought a galaxy light for my ceiling, and it's super trippy to watch in the dark. Plus, I've been obsessed with this song recently, and it's so perfect with the lights. He nods his head to his bed. Wanna watch? I tilt my head and smile. Yes. After taking off my shoes, I climb into Dexter's bed, sinking into the fluffy comforter and settling on a big pillow. Dexter turns off all the lights and covers his windows with curtains, leaving a subtle glow of daylight peeking through the cracks. He sets up a small black device at the foot of his bed on a table. With a click, the dark popcorn ceiling lights up with a galaxy of color. The stars drift slowly across the faux sky, soon picking up speed as they change color. Not enough to make me dizzy, but perfect enough to make me feel like I'm moving through space. Crazy, huh? One more thing and it'll be perfect, Dexter says while my eyes stay on the sky. After a minute, he joins me on the bed, looking at me dreamily as hues of soft red turn to light purple on his face. He turns away for a second, and I hear something tossed onto his nightstand before he's back to me. A second later, the piano starts. We'll do it all, everything, on our own. Chasing Cars, one of my favorites, but it sounds so incredibly different right now. The stars sway to the slow, drawn-out vocals, and the galaxies somehow come together and burst at all the right notes. Once it hits the chorus, I'm drawn to Dexter, who I find already staring at me as he rests so close. Closer than I expected, but I selfishly want more. Dexter's heavy lids examine me, and for once I don't feel overwhelmed and look away. His dark eyes hold me tight, like all of our hugs. I want to touch him, but he beats me to the punch and raises a hand to my cheek. He takes a tuft of my hair and puts it behind my ear lovingly. I notice his hand's cold, and I instinctively grab it with my hand, kept warm by the hearth of my beating heart. He says his hand, big and perfect for holding, needs both of mine, and I am happy to please. There's a smile in his eye and an ear-to-ear grin once I hold all of his hands. This ridiculous boy is so precious, and I can't keep the words from spilling out. I love you. His eyes widen for a flash and my heart pounds. I'm sorry, that just came out. Is it too early to say that? Nope. It just means I can say it now too. To love and to be loved. It's a beautiful feeling. I deserve this. Thank you.